And students, we're looking at module 36 here. I almost thought about not even doing a video for this module because it's sort of review stuff, but I thought I was doing them for the rest of them. Why not? So module 36 basically gives us a modern consensus of what's happening. When you look at it, it breaks it down into classical, Keynesian, monetarist, and the modern sort of ideas of what works, what doesn't work for fixing an economy. Classical guys is easy. Nothing works. We just let her all ride and see what happens. Eventually, we'll get down, back to that long run situation. But again, that could take decades of depression, recession, um, and there's really nothing that they would do about it. Problem is, if you're in that positive side, they don't do anything either. But at the same time, that's where Keynes, his issue a little bit is when you get to that positive side, you really should pull back. You need to start doing things like, hey, I need to get some sense of paying off that debt that I just accrued from the recession when times are good. And the problem is nobody wants to do that because every one of those programs you started is somebody's baby, and nobody likes throwing out the babies. So when you look at Keynes, his ideas are mostly fiscal in there, and the problem is, you got to cut back at some point too. And he did say that. It's just that saying it and doing it are two different things. He wasn't a huge fan of that monetary policy. He didn't, it'll work, but maybe not as well as just tax and spend. Especially when you look at that multiplier, when you tax and when you decide to spend from just government spending, that is 100% of that multiplier. Whereas if you start doing some other things in there, it doesn't always work as well. Monetarists, of course, they feel like, hey, you know what? Monetary policy is the way to go. The Fed put some money in, take some money out. That's what's going to get our economy on track. And then they say fiscal policy, to heck with it. Don't worry about that. Every time you try to mess with it, because of the lags and everything else, you're just going to screw things up more than you'll help. And of course, the modern consensus is monetary policy works most of the time. Fiscal policy helps in fighting a recession. Can you really do things in terms of unemployment and employment through there? Probably not. You try to mess with stuff and then the market's just going to react one way or another. You're trying to fix one thing, and then of course suppliers do something else that you didn't anticipate. You give suppliers extra money thinking they'll dump it into the economy or help out their employees, and instead they just pay off the CEOs or buy back their own stock, causing stock prices to go up, but it doesn't help the little guy. So when you look at that kind of stuff, it really probably doesn't do a whole lot because businesses don't really react the way they should when those policies happen. Last but not least, where it says, should monetary policy be used in a discretionary way? That's interesting. Like Keynes, I guess even there says, yeah, let's try it, see what happens. Even the monetarists don't believe that that's really the way to go, only to be done in a recessionary time period. And the modern people are like, we're still sort of out on that one. As you look at some of the stuff, should monetary policy be used in a discretionary way? Having an independent central bank is probably the best thing for us. That's why the political pressure from the president and stuff on the Fed is a bad idea. Anytime they're pressuring like, oh, lower rates. Well, why? Because you want to get reelected? That doesn't, that might not be the best for the economy. And when you look at even what has happened recently, we lowered rates to the point where there was no other place for them to go. And now we're stuck. So if something's going to happen, I mean, what are you going to do? Start lowering rates to negative rates where you're paying people to borrow? I mean, that's just ridiculous. So should we use discretionary, fiscal policy? Probably to some degree, right? You gotta fix things when you can, but at the same time, if you're gonna fix things, you better be willing to pull back when times are good. And finally, should we have like this, asset prices down here for probably E on your little PowerPoint? Should the Fed be proactively influencing the stock market? I would say no. That is a bad idea. Should they put policies in place so when banks and things make bad decisions, they can maybe help out or fix? That's that F there, unconventional monetary policy. Like maybe you got to do something when your too big to fail things happen and the banks have screwed everything up royally and now you need to bail them out. That stuff probably needs to happen, but you could just put regulation on and then it wouldn't happen. And the problem is that's political too, right? People are fighting back and forth. Ooh, too much government. Oh, not enough government. Oh, there should be a happy medium. But you have to know businesses are not going to do what you want them to do out of the goodness of your heart, right? They're not just going to all of a sudden pay their people more. They're not going to all of a sudden not take risks if they think they can make a huge profit from that risk. That's what businesses do. And so if you want to fix those things, you probably need to regulate. That's the last part of this section. We'll do some review, like FRQs and things, Thursday, and then test on Friday. Thanks. Bye.